Next, we're going to have Colin Toal who's a CTO at Chisel AI. Colin, can you please join the stage?
Hi, Alex. Thank you for
Hey,
having
Colin.
me.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
And where do we find you this morning or this evening?
I'm at home in West Toronto. This is also our guest bedroom, so it seems to be a popular office choice.
I got to get a better guest bedroom. It was my wife's office before COVID, and now I'm not allowed in it because she says I just mess it up whenever I go in there.
Well, I think that's we're both working remotely, so my partner has her place in the basement, so the light is better up here, but she has a much nicer desk, so it's a bit of a
Sounds like a
trade.
good trade-off.
Yeah.
So, love to start in your own words. What does Chisel AI do?
This is complicated. Okay, we are an insurance software company that uses natural language processing to read all of the artifacts that are involved in selling commercial insurance, so human beings don't have to.
Interesting. Maybe just double click on that.
Yeah.
Why is that a big problem, or why has that been a historically big problem?
So commercial insurance is a really complicated product. If you've bought a commercial policy ever, you know that it takes a long time. There's a million questions you need to answer. There's a lot of documentation that you need to provide. All of that documentation has to be legible and flexible. So all the carriers, all the brokers that deal with this, they prefer to work in the most legible, flexible thing that is accessible to everybody, which is paperwork, right? Everyone reads language, they share it. The terms of art and the language in insurance is very specialized, has very specific meaning, but it's not very useful for computers. So the data warehousing, the automation, all the processing that we take for granted in many other industries, when it comes to commercial insurance and it comes to the act of purchasing a policy or placing the risk of a company with a carrier, the process slows down. Okay. Yeah. Not only does it slow down, it becomes really, really inefficient from an economic standpoint, because getting the material data that's in that paperwork that's necessary for pricing a policy is a friction. It's a human effort to do it. Where we add value is we use natural language processing. We use machine learning models that are trained to recognize and summarize the information across that diversity of paper and make it really easy to integrate the existing insurance systems with the extractions that we produce. The result is a definite speed up and a definite increase in the information that's available for carriers and brokers to help their customers get the best coverage.
So I love that in-depth description and of the problem and what you're solving. I want to come back to that and ask about some of the challenges from a technical perspective and also integrating with customers a bit. But before we do that, I'd love to go a bit into your career path. When I checked you out, you've worked at IBM, Oracle, and Amazon, and the Chisel and the previous job is Integrate are both at startups. So explain a bit your journey and how you've gone from Big Blue to working at startups.
It's an interesting story. I started my career with a small software company in Toronto called Jana Systems. Jana was fortunate and successful enough to get acquired by Siebel. It was a vertical focused CRM. Siebel at the time was the 800-pound gorilla in the CRM space. It acquired Jana, and I went on to work at Siebel for a number of years. I went on to help Siebel start a software as a service with the team there. I got to work with some really fantastic people from Jana through that period of time. I got to learn a ton and really be at the very beginning of software as a service when CRM On Demand started inside of Siebel. That then got acquired by Oracle. I spent a number of years at Oracle. And then Amazon started their Toronto Development Center. I was fortunate enough to be one of the early employees there, helping build that organization. Across my career, I've been a part of starting small things that grow into big things inside of large companies. So from Jana being acquired, we were always influencing and driving the direction of the Siebel product suite as an activist group inside of that company. Inside of Oracle, the same thing occurred. We had great leadership that got Oracle to focus on software as a service and for us to build a product suite and an opportunity there. The difference in sort of the experience inside of a large company, or even, when I think about Amazon, where we started a site inside of Amazon that became the Toronto development site. When you're building something from scratch, whether it's inside of a startup or it's inside of a larger company that is starting something new, A lot of the experiences are the same. A lot of the bias to action, a lot of the direction you have to set, not just take, is the same. But like Wayne said previously, inside of those large companies, the big difference is you're more specialized, but you have a bigger platform. With the smaller companies, the specialization hasn't taken hold yet. You're doing a lot of different roles. You're spending a lot of time filling gaps that you have across the organization, and the platform is smaller, but you're still starting something. You're still building something from scratch. So that's always been appealing to me. It's been a part of my career from the beginning, even though the journey has me in a multiple of contexts.
So I love that, how you like to build something, start small and make it larger.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone that's looking to take a CTO role or maybe join a team like yours, how do you determine this is the right thing to go start? It's the right place, it's the right team, it's the right opportunity. Do you have a checklist? What do how do you figure it out?
This is really hard. I mean, this is one of the central challenges of anybody starting a business or starting a software company, starting anything really, is, are you starting the right thing? Do you have the right people around you? Do you have the ability to do it? Do you know yourself that this is the right thing for you? I wish I could say that there's a simple formula or a magic checklist. I've been really fortunate. Some of the folks at Chisel are folks that I've worked with in my past that I adore and that are excellent to work with. So if you know you have friends with you, if you know you have people that you have history with, those are good people to take an adventure with. If you know the space, if you have conviction about your customers needing your solution, if you feel passionate about the problem, it's a little bit unusual to say about automating commercial insurance placement, but we really do feel passionate about it. It impacts every business. It enables them to take risks more more in a way that keeps their customers whole if something goes wrong. So we are passionate about that. So if you're passionate about the problem, if you believe the solution adheres nicely to it, and you've got some people around you that you trust and that you admire and that you know you're going to learn from, those are sort of the right ingredients. In any of the roles I've taken, whether it's initially at Jana, or my time at Oracle and Siebel, even my time at Amazon, where there was people there that when I first met them, I knew I could trust them and work well with them, and I knew that we were tackling real problems. And at Integrate and at Chisel, it's the same thing. It's like you've got some people around you trust, you know that they're good people, you've got a problem you understand well and that you're convicted about, and you've got a technical approach that you think will make a difference. If you have those ingredients, it doesn't matter if it's a big company or small company, if you're starting something or you're in somewhere established. If you love the problem, you're going to make a difference.
So I love the idea of loving the problem. And I actually do find what you're doing fascinating. Maybe it makes me odd. I've been in insurtechs before. I'd love to flip it around. Like you come in as you're the CTO. I think you're solving a problem which has probably long sales cycle, hard integrations. It's science as much as it's cutting edge technology, and you need to build a team, right? You're fast growing. I think from everything I've heard from outside, Chisel has a lot of good customers. How do you go about setting your team up for success and recruiting people? Does it start with culture? And if so, what's that culture like? Tell me how you go to building a technology team here, and how you work with the rest of the organization.
Hiring is probably the most important core skill that you have there. You have to select the right folks for the stage. They have to have the upside potential and the growth potential to evolve with each stage of the company and take on more responsibility and more scope. Those folks are folks that at this stage are resourceful, right? They're externally aware. They have a great sort of background and breadth of knowledge. They have strong skills. So that you've seen in the interview and in talking with them that they've got demonstrated abilities. They're resilient. With an emergent space like natural language processing, where the research is strong, but the application to business is narrow and difficult, you want to make sure that you're finding people who, when it doesn't work the first time, stick around for the 51st time. So they have to have resilience. They have to be able to solve problems and be determined and creative and resourceful to find their way to multiple solutions that will be good for the company. And probably the last sort of aspect of that, resourceful, resilient, uh, strong skills. They have to be able to fight with each other, but still love each other like a family. Right? They have to be people who are great at conflict in a way where the conflict can go fast and it can resolve, but the result is that if the decision doesn't go my way, I still want to hug the people for whom the decision went. Right? This is the ability to stick together as a team through all the debate and all of the elaboration that goes on when you're making a decision is super, super important.
I love
So we
that.
look for, when we interview, we look for that resourcefulness, we look for resiliency, we look for great technical skills, we look for the ability to conflict well, and the ability to still, love the people you're working with.
Yeah, I love it. Sounds like no ego, but you have to push for what you believe in.
Yeah, it's not to lean too hard on it, but Amazon is a great expression for this: is have backbone,
Yeah.
right? But disagree and commit. So you got to be able to know in the moment that you got to advocate for your ideas and bring them to the table, not be afraid of that conflict. But then on the other side, accept that it's just work, it's just business, and this is the way things are going, and we're all a team, and we want everybody to succeed here.
I'd love to pick up a couple questions from what you just said. First of all, um, it sounds like you have a team that works internally really well together. And imagine you have, let's call it sales team or the team that's basically getting the commercial partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you're dealing with insurance companies that have a different approach to technology and a different stack.
Mm-hmm.
How do you work with your counterparts that are selling so they don't oversell? How do you have those open discussions? Because imagine it's probably a bit of product and probably a bit of like customer service after. So how do you make sure that I've been in organizations like that enterprise early stage where a salesperson sells one thing, the tech team goes, "What the hell have you done?" And it's a bit of fighting. So how do you work with the rest of the organization?
Our superpower right now is that we're small.
Okay.
So the organization's less than 50. When we were in the office together, we could all see each other, across the room and talk, really openly, really fairly. Now that we're distributed, we see each other pretty regularly on group Slack meetings that we have or group Zoom calls that we have. But really concretely, it's all about transparency and honesty. So, we understand the sort of the envelope of the technology, which is a interesting thing for natural language processing with all the hype around machine learning and all the hype around, artificial intelligence. Being able to clearly articulate the envelope, the performance envelope of the technology, how well it will work, what circumstances it will work under, what kinds of problems it adheres nicely to, and how valuable those are for customers, gives us the ability to arm our customer success folks, our sales folks, with what's a really compelling offering. They don't have to exaggerate, right? We know that the technology that we produce, it makes a difference for these businesses. It reduces their effort meaningfully, and it drives faster ability to quote and bind. On the other side, our sales folks are really transparent with us. Our product development team, they sit in on the sales pipeline reviews. We talk about every opportunity at this stage. We discuss the challenges and the trade-offs that we have to make with respect to particular roadmap items. At some point, it'll be exciting for this business to move into an adjacency to commercial insurance placement. And the right time for that we'll take as a team. It'll be interesting for us to move into claims. The right time for that we'll take as a team. Right now, what we do is, again, it's that ability to be transparent, to be open and honest, talk reasonably about what's achievable with the technology, and then manage the conflict well. We have our backbone, we stick when we need to stick, and we bend when we need to bend, and it works really well.
I love it. It seems like one of the core principles you have throughout the organization is basically transparent and open communication. You mentioned about being in office and mentioned now about being in Slack. So what do you believe is going to happen going forward? Is it remote, hybrid, going to be back in the offices? And what's the trade-off you're doing as at least from a development team?
That's a super good question. We're wrestling with it. The future's flexible. Like, we know that. There is real convenience and real value to employees to be able to, make their own lunch in their kitchen if they want to, or, make their own lunch in a friend's kitchen if they're, 3 towns over, or, on the West Coast. We appreciate that flexibility, and we know that we're not going to go back to the way things were. The way things were wasn't optimal. The way things are right now isn't optimal either, but there's a progress that we can make. One of the toughest things about that transition is that teams need attachment. There's a value to working next to each other every day, to breathing the same air, to the casual conversation, the serendipity that occurs when you're sharing space. You're just overhearing each other. You're just learning about each other by proximity. And that's dissipated, and that's a little bit of a loss that for teams makes retention tougher, makes attachment and commitment to each other tougher. It's that, that gel that sort of binds people together. We as an industry have to figure out what we're going to do differently, what management approaches, what team building activities, what ways we can put the work forward and collaborate well together so that the strength of the team forms that way. I've been fortunate in my career to be really in a remote office for most of the companies that I've worked for. I've been at a distance, and I've been either in a satellite office, or I've been a teleworker. I've been through that. This is still one of the most profound people management challenges I've seen. Is like, how do you really build attachment inside of teams where there's high internal accountability to each other, where people can look at each other and say, say you did great, also say you can do better, and say those things directly to each other, and know when you're looking each other in the eyes that you mean it and it works well. The absence of that is a real struggle for folks. But we are committed to flexibility, and we're committed to thinking thoughtfully about those problems and finding a way to, to make the next mode of work better than any mode of work we've had.
So a couple of questions there. So it sounds like you've been remote or partially remote for lots of your career. What are the tips you give someone that's just starting a career right now to make remote work for them?
Don't make the meetings all about the work. Right?
Yeah.
When you meet in person and you're in a room, it's not just straight down to business. Right? Get to know each other, make space for it remotely, make space for it in the meetings and the rituals. We had a member of our team suggest a really smart sort of icebreaker activity that we do as part of our stand-ups, which is to say, a fun fact every day. We just rotate through the teams, and people share a fact or an experience that they've had in their past that other folks don't know about. They get to learn from each other that way. Anything you can do to situationally set vulnerability the right way, right? Just, share about yourself in a way that isn't excessive or uncomfortable for folks, but allows them to know you as people and encourage other people to do the same. If you're working remotely, ask for help. Reach out to people that you need help from, connect with them. Also ask people to help you, even if you don't need it, even if you know, basically how to do what you need to do. If there's somebody on your team you think will benefit from the company through a task, ask them to help you with it. You'll get more connective tissue that way. You'll get more connection that way by reaching out to folks, by being vulnerable about yourself in certain ways, not too much, and by keeping space in the meetings for you to do that.
So I love that. Bring some of your personality there. It seems like hearing communication, personality, all very important. Like, not fitting. It sounds like developers, there's some stereotypes that you don't bring personality to work, and stuff. But it seems like you've always created cultures where people can be themselves, be confident, and communicate.
I've never. It's never been my experience that the stereotype of the developer is the truth of the developer. What I love about this business is that these are some of the smartest people I've ever met, some of the most interesting people I've ever met, and some of the most fun teams I've ever been on have been, with technologists building technology.
Very cool. And right now, I believe you're hiring for your team. So what roles are you trying to fill out?
We need early professional developers. We need intermediate developers. We need senior developers. It doesn't matter if you've got a machine learning background. It doesn't matter if you've got a background that you think is orthogonal to insurance. Most important is that you're resourceful, that you're resilient, that you've got great technical skills, and that you have a great backbone. That's what we're looking for in this team. And the machine learning aspect, we have incredibly talented machine learning scientists on the team that you'll learn a ton from. We have experienced developers that are filling in the gap between the machine learning practice and what it means to deliver it meaningfully to production and to have an impact on customers. This is a moment for anybody who's a software developer who's looking for the sort of the next phase of technology to see what is necessary to bring machine learning to bear on a problem. What's the real engineering that has to occur? This is really a moment for that. And, we're in a great spot as a company to learn that together.
And if someone wants to reach out to you and contact you, what's the best way to do that?
CTOAL at Chisel AI, or reach out to me on LinkedIn, either of those.
Cool. And one last question, unrelated. I'm curious, one thing when I was preparing for this, and I think about it, lots of fintech companies in Canada can focus on the Canadian market only. And insurtech companies have to seem to be international from day one. What is the difference in industry structure that makes that happen?
I think there's 6 really good large banks here in Canada. And there is a really good economic demographic for retail banking here. And there's an opportunity, as great as our banks are, there's an opportunity for challenger banks and incumbent banks, the Wealthsimples of the world, to push those big 6 to do more for customers. And I think that's really interesting. For commercial insurance, there's it's a large market in terms of gross written premium, but it's a small market in terms of players. And insurance companies generally work as a network.
Yeah.
They're more cooperative because they reinsure each other and they split risks on policies all the time. And they shed when they've got a particular exposure to a risk like wood framed houses on the west coast of Canada. They look at that and say, we've got enough exposure there. They raise their premiums so that they share that exposure with other groups. The whole system works like a large sort of load balancing network of moving risk around. So they're very cooperative. The result of that is that they're very open-minded to technology vendors from across geographies. They're very open-minded to partnerships that are very geographically dispersed because the coverage for the risk transcends borders well. So you've got your Munich Re's reinsuring your AIGs. You've got your Zurich Insurance, splitting policies with Chubb on a single large insured. There's a lot of cooperation that happens and a lot of crossover and partnership that develops between those companies. So they become more open to working across geographies. For us, it's really, really exciting because it's nice to work with people from around the world. It's a fun thing.
So last question then. How many countries do you have clients in?
Right now, just one.
Okay, just one. Okay.
Just one. But it is an international company.
Yeah.
But it's a division in one. But we are talking with, I'm going to say, potential customers and 2 others.
Excellent. I look forward to hearing those announcements because I find in InsurTech every big customer win is announced, which is great. Colin, it was a pleasure. I actually find it fascinating how you're approaching building a culture, and I hope more startups do that because I love the idea of a backbone and open discussions because I find sometimes it's not that way. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Cool. Now I'm going to get back to Jason to